There is something very special about the Senna name, McLaren, Monaco, Bruno Senna. I'm first of all loving the shirt, and it's lovely to see you
Great
again.
to see
mate.
you too.
16 years since you won here.
Mate, I can't believe the time flies by like this, but here we are. You know, it's 30 years from Ayrton's passing, and the tributes are still amazing. And this time we have the best one for McLaren in the place where he still is king.
What do you think he would have made of this?
I think he would have still won more times if I continue racing. So the tributes would have been even stronger. But you know, I think Ayrton was not one to sort of like lay on his laurels. He was always pushing to improve, and I'm pretty sure he'll still be involved in motor racing one way or another.
We are going to walk around the track, and we're going to look back over the incredible memories that he created here, becoming a 6-time winner at this circuit, synonymous with this place, a place where we remember him again this year in 2024, and a place where you have some very special memories as well.
For sure, I can't wait to, I mean, Monaco Grand Prix track is always special anywhere, anytime you're coming here, so remembering some of his moments will be even more special.
Cool, let's go.
Let's go.
The story starts with Ayrton's very first Monaco Grand Prix in '84 because it was wet, a little bit like it is today. Well, a lot wetter than it was, a lot more wet than today. Prost calling for the race to be red flagged. It finally is red flagged. He stops about here before the line. Your uncle flies past, thinks he's won the race.
And Prost is stopping, and Senna crosses the line before he gets there. Now that's amazing.
But ultimately it's second.
Yeah, you know, it's the unfortunate thing about red flags is that they count the last lap, right? And you know, the conditions were crazy, and there were maybe a couple of drivers, Ayrton and I think Beloff.
Yeah.
They were still like actually driving the cars. Everybody else was trying to survive. And in a car that had no chance of actually winning a race, Ayrton would have won the race with one more lap. That's all he needed to win his first Monaco Grand Prix. What a story.
It's crazy, and he'd hit his wheel against the wall. He damaged his suspension, and he was still reeling in Prost like every single lap.
Yeah, I think you know, everybody was really trying to stay on track basically, and Ayrton was pushing. You could see that he was pushing. There was a moment where it's very famous. He's on over the curbs on the chicane out of the tunnel. So nobody was taking any prisoners there, but you know, the class that Ayrton had in the rain was something else.
Yeah. And it was the start of that relationship between him and Prost, where they would, you know, become rivals in the future. But at that time, Ayrton really looked up to Alain, didn't he, at the time?
I mean, he always did. I think any sportsman who recognized the top people in their sport, and Ayrton knew that Alain was an amazing driver, and sure enough, you know, when he got to race against Prost in all the years that they were in competitive cars, he learned a lot from him, and he really respected him. In Portuguese, it was quite funny because he used to come and say, "O francês é foda," means like French guy is like hard.
Yeah.
So it was. I remember this one from when I was a kid, and it's in a really good way. Like he's like true respect, and I think, you know, even when they're bitter rivals, there was the most respect for the driving.
Incredible. And it was on that. I mean, everyone knew from his drives in Formula 3 that he was special, but it was here on that day on this track where he properly arrived in Formula 1.
For sure. I mean, throughout that year, he made that car look much more competitive than it should have been in a few occasions. But Monaco was the place where he, you know, everybody was like, "Whoa, okay, there's something really special there."
Senna challenging for that second place, and he's taken it. A magnificent bit of driving by Senna, who's now in second place.
I've magicked up some photographs. 84 there, obviously so wet.
I mean, no chance this would be a race nowadays.
No way.
There'll
They'd
be
stop
red
it.
flags so much faster. I mean, the conditions that they used to race back then, you know, racing was more of like it was not as controlled as it is today. I mean, pit stops had no speed limit, like in the pit lane.
Yeah.
They were like just going in and out of the lane,
just
flat
flying
out.
through.
Like, conditions were much more extreme. It was a different racing back then, for sure.
Right. On to the next point.
Ooh, I know this corner.
Okay, let's go. This is, like, for me, one of the definitive moments of the track, but you forget until you come back every year how undulating this is. It's like this is properly banked, and then it's properly steep on the other side.
You know, you have like camber on this corner, so as you turn in, the car really grips in the front, and as you go over the brow, this happens really quickly, obviously you're coming at very high speeds. As you go over the brow, the rear gets quite loose, so you always see the drivers on the knife edge here as they put the power down, and they have to avoid a bump down the hill. It's a really tricky corner, and you know, you're changing direction, preparing for the next braking area. It's a proper commitment.
And Ayrton's famous pole lap from 88, 1.5 seconds clear of Prost, right? There's no footage of that lap, but we have the lap from 1990. And he's pretty much one-handed for the entire lap, apart from here,
Well,
because there's just the car stepping out.
Imagine driving the turbocharged cars here in Monaco. They have massive turbo lag. You have to like predict when the turbo is coming in. So that lap in 88 was something else already. And you have the extra challenge of the turbocharged cars, like just getting a turbo boost in the wrong place will make you go into the wall. But every time you see Ayrton's handwork with the gear changes and the steering wheel, this is just where he showed his art.
It's absolutely incredible. It really is. And it's so steep. Spin it around. Take a look how steep it is.
When you hit the brakes down there, your rear wheels just lock up. Doesn't matter what you're doing. You had either normally a rear wheel lock up and then just go straight down the left, and the runoff area is much better than it used to be now. Or you hit the wall. It's a really tricky braking area as well. This whole section of this track is one of the hardest for sure.
And you have to almost brush the barrier on exit, don't you?
Yeah, you use all the track, but as soon as you come out of the corner, you have to avoid that big bump. As you can see down there, there's a massive like hump on the road.
It's where the road comes in from the side, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
And if you go straight over there, you get like a bit of air and wheel spin, and then that bottoms out and that can ruin the car. So it's you have to like do laps here to understand what's the best line. And obviously, Ayrton knew this place quite well, I guess.
How much do you think living here helped? Or helps? Because you live here, you know what it's like, you've driven the track. Does it help the fact that you live here to know the track, or is it just muscle memory and a love and affinity for the place?
I think it's, you know, when you live here, you know what they do when they resurface the track, if they do any works. But ultimately, to drive this track fast, it's a feel thing, and you know you have to just do it over and over again. And I think all the drivers here are driving at an amazing time.
Yeah. This looks so much longer on TV. It's so short
It's
coming
just
down.
like squirting the throttle, back on the brakes here, the slowest corner on the whole championship.
And it has had many names over the years. The Station, Hairpin, it's the Fairmont now. But the corner has always remained this same challenge. And your uncle had to do it in 89 with 2 fewer gears than he was used to. You see him crossing his arms up, coming through, like, what an amazing drive.
You know, everybody asks me, what was more difficult, to race when Ayrton was racing with those cars or nowadays? And today's cars are much faster, so the G-force is higher, so the physical challenge in terms of just your fitness level is higher. But the stress level of driving those cars was much, much higher. You have brakes that fade, you had gearbox that breaks, you had an engine, you had obviously to take care of the car for fuel consumption, all these things that nowadays it's all sort of done for the driver. And any mistake you did was fatal. And all these things that happen, like broken gears in a gearbox, they could be fatal for your race. And you know, I had a few races where I had not all the gears working on this car. So to win here in Monaco with all the gears is hard.
It's crazy. And as you say, you know, the reliability wasn't great in those days. Michael retiring here in 93, Ayrton taking his 6th win. It's an incredible record, isn't it? You think Graham Hill is known as Mr. Monaco, but Ayrton won here more.
I know, it's nuts. I mean, the reliability was tough, and also the drivability of the cars. It was not as consistent as it is nowadays. But winning here in Monaco, you need all your talent and a bit of luck as well. You know, it's a bit like Monaco also chooses the winners. So Monaco chose Ayrton to be the king.
And Ayrton drove this place magnificently, so much so. There's a famous quote from him, a famous story that relates to the corner we're going to go to next, which is one of the all-time, the great Formula One stories, I think.
Let's do it. Let's go.
Looks a bit different.
It's just a little bit. I think
It's
in
changed.
the last 37 years, I think things have changed a little bit.
I mean, that's in the last 18 months.
Yeah, no, this is actually started being built in 2018.
Did it? But
Yeah.
it was behind the boards for the last few years, so we
Indeed.
never saw it. Anyway, that's not what we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss the fact that your uncle was so in the zone so at one with his car and this track that he had an outer body experience. Did he ever talk to you about that?
Well, not personally. He told my mom about it, and I think it's hard for you to understand something like this when you're like that far in the zone that you're not connecting your mind to your body anymore. You're just on automatic. And he was at a pace. I saw the McLaren published the timesheets for the engineer was doing for the car, and it's the times that are consistent, that are getting faster, and then there's a point where it was a bit slower, and I heard that they called him on the radio to tell him to slow down. That's when he lost his focus, and then he crashed.
Right here.
Right here.
That is Senna. Sensation. On lap 67, Ayrton Senna goes out of the lead of the Monaco Grand Prix at the Portier.
It's the most astonishing story.
You know, the worst thing is, this is not an easy corner to crash, because it's a slow corner. You sort of like, there's a sort of rhythm, but he was so close to the barriers every time. Like, he was driving so much on the limit that he clipped the inside wall, and that put him on the outside wall. That's it.
That was it. And he was so in the moment, so at one with everything. Could you ever imagine of seeing yourself? He talked about almost being above the car and seeing himself in the car driving.
I can't even imagine how it felt. I mean, and the shock of suddenly something else changing, like when he clipped the inside barrier and suddenly you're like back in there.
Yeah.
And then it ends this way. So I bet he was like so frustrated because something switched inside of him because of this radio call, and that made him crash. And then, luckily for him, he lived very close, so he just walked straight back home.
And that was it? And nobody heard from him for a day?
For a few hours, I think he managed to speak to the team, debrief a little bit. You have to still talk to the team after. It's a team sport still.
Yeah. Looking at this photo of the win, his first win in '87, you realise how much the swimming pool section has changed?
I think I like it more the way it is now.
Why? Because you can go faster through it.
Yeah, it's so fast, and it's a real thrill. Like, this part of the track is my favorite because it's, let's say, a bit more open, even if it's still as narrow as the other parts. But it's so fast here. Like, the swimming pool is really fast. The next chicane is a real commitment corner, and if you take that curve the wrong way, you've seen everyone, all the best drivers, hit that wall just before the Rascas.
And just get launched straight into it. Yeah. What did this mean to Ayrton to take that first win here? We know what it meant to him by the end, but that first win at somewhere so special.
I guess he felt like his first win was in '84, so it took him another 3 years to be able to get a real win, a official win, and in a car that, again, was not the car that was a race winner regularly. So that's when I think he really started to believe that he could start winning regularly, and obviously had a Honda engine in his car there. He was very, very keen on having Honda with him for the future. He knew that was the best engine at the time, and that went with him with McLaren, and I think the history writes itself after that.
I love that car.
It is a cool car, isn't it?
Yeah, I had a model car kit of it. I made it with my dad, with all the glue. And
the yellow,
it's perfect, right?
It suits us, right?
Yeah. So just up from Rascas to the final corner on the track, and this is the moment, the moment when you come around here for the last time and you get this last corner right, you've won in Monaco. What's that feeling like?
It's hard to describe because in Monaco you do 78 laps, right? And you start the race and you're like going around and you see the sign like 78, 77, 76, 75. And you're like, okay, I'm gonna stop looking for a while. And then I start looking again a bit later. And then you look again, it's like 68, 67, it's like it never ends. But once you're under pressure and you're like putting everything on the race, every time you come here, it's like, it's one last lap to go. And on the last lap, you've done the job. I had Pastor here behind me in GP2, and he was fast, and we were like right against each other all the way to the end. When I came around the last corner, I knew it was mine. It's this amazing feeling, and the podium here is very special as well, very different from all the others. And I really remembered Ayrton when I got to this podium in 2008. So it's a place that has some history, and a track that I think every single driver really wants to win. And you know, he won more than everybody else.
He did. Particularly with these corners, I think of 1992, and Mansell just not being able to find a way past. How old were you in
I was
'92?
8 years old at that time.
Were you watching at home in Brazil?
Absolutely, yeah.
Were you
yeah.
going crazy in front of the TV?
I mean, at that time, you know, the Williams was so much faster than
yeah, it was
McLaren.
incredible.
And when we saw Mansell pitting and he had like a puncture or whatever it was, we're like, oh, Ayrton's in the lead. We didn't even believe it. And Mansell was all over Ayrton. He must have been 5 seconds lap faster, but Ayrton was in the middle of the track. There was no way he was going to let Mansell pass unless, you know, he crashed. And he didn't, and it was an amazing win. I think Mansell also felt that it was an amazing win because he knew that any mistakes was game over.
Incredible, incredible. Your uncle was an icon in this sport, a hero to so many, and I know a hero to you as well. How meaningful is it to be back here 30 years after we lost him, to be wearing his colours, to see the McLaren car in his colours? Is it special?
Well, it's more than special, right? I think every person, everything sort of fades through time. And the feeling that Ayrton is not fading is still so strong in people's memories. I think you see parents and grandparents teaching and passing this memory that they had from Ayrton, this experience they had from Ayrton, but not Ayrton as the sportsman only, but also the person. And I think this is why Ayrton is really, truly unforgettable. It's just because he was a person that was not only a sports person, but like a real reference as a human being. And this is what we also remember him as.
Love it. This has been special, man. Thank you.
So special.
Really great.
Thank you, man.
Cheers, man.